Hi, in this segment we'll cover how to set up the blade and blade holder and the little tips that you need to know for the best cutting for whatever media that you're using. Now, as a reminder, there are precautions to be aware of. I discussed this at the introduction of this trading video. First, handle the blades carefully because they're small, especially the springs. Secondly, even though they are small, they can give you a nasty paper cut, so please handle them with care. While I'll be covering the blade depth in this segment, it cannot be stressed enough to avoid extending the blade too far. While cutting into your table is going to happen, over time, cutting too much will affect your cutting because of the burrs that it creates. Replacing the tabletop is expensive, so follow the instructions in this segment and you'll be able to prolong the life of your bed. Well, let's start off with installing the blade into the blade holder. Go ahead and pull out your blade holder and then unscrew the shaft as you see here. Once you unscrew the shaft, then take the small blade. Now make sure you take a good hold of it and then slide it down. Put the blade holder at an angle and then just tap it a couple times to make sure it seats correctly down at the bottom. Once it's seated and you feel comfortable with that, then go ahead and put the shaft back in, push it so you hear it click, and then go ahead and start. Besides the green tip holder that you get standard with the FCX2000, there are optional blade holders that you can get from GravTech. One is a larger blade holder for cutting thicker materials and a smaller blade holder. I'm going to show you how to install both of those just in case if you need those for your particular application. Well, let's start with a large blade holder. Now this is a little bit easier to put in. All you have to do is take off this cap here, and there's a hole inside the cap where you go ahead and place the blade. You can see the hole there. So go ahead and insert the blade into that hole, and then once it's in there, just press it back and forth. Just make it sure it's going up and down freely. Once you have that, then go ahead and just screw on the cap and then start extending the blade. Now the blue tip holder is similar in that there too is also a hole for the blade. So go ahead and grab the blade. Now one of the things that you're going to have to make sure or be careful of is hold on that blade with the spring, because that spring will slip off. So get a good grip on it. Go ahead and put it in the hole on the cap, and then once that's done, then go ahead and install the cap onto the blade holder. And that's pretty much it. Then you just have to extend it. The next thing we want to do here is talk about accurately extending the blade. Because we talked about earlier, we really don't want to extend it so far so it cuts into the bed, yet we don't want to retract it too far so we're not cutting at all, or we have to use an excessive force to cut through the material. So how do we get that right blade length? Well, there's a couple rules that we can follow. When you have material that has a backing, like a carrier sheet, you're not going to cut all the way through. What you want to do is cut through the material, as represented in the yellow there, and just enough to score the backing or the carrier sheet. In this way, when this is set up correctly, it will actually cut it perfectly, and you'll never have to worry about it cutting all the way through due to applying too much pressure on the force. To really verify this, what's the best thing to do is take the blade into your hand, as you see here, and draw a circle, and then try to pull up that circle. Now your hand carries an extensive amount of pressure, so if you're able to pull it up without having to pull out the carrier sheet, then you know the blade is extended far enough. Now let's look at extending the blade when you're trying to cut completely through. Once again, you don't want to extend it too much further than what the thickness of the material. And in fact, the best case is like you see here, where it just hits the edge or the bottom of the material. Here's the best way of checking that. Place another sheet underneath the sheet you're trying to cut. Then take out your blade and extend it by matching it up against the edge here, as you can see, and see if the blade extends far enough. If you feel that it does, then go ahead and do a test cut like we did previously and put a lot of pressure in it, and then see if it splits cleanly. If it does, then you know the blade is extended out perfectly. Adjusting the head height is real important if you want good effective cutting. The reason is if the head is too high, it will never reach or cut deep enough through the material that you're trying to cut. And if it's too low, then or the tool doesn't actually have enough room to get a running start, so to speak, to cut through the material. So the head height has to be just right, and there's a way of doing this which we'll show you in just a second. To raise or lower the head, you need two items from the accessory pack of the FCX2000. The first one is an Allen wrench to loosen the head so you can move it up and down. And the second one is a spacer so you can lay the head on top of it and then get the perfect spacing. Now keep in mind that that spacer is to space the head perfectly above the material that you're cutting. So the first thing you'd want to do is put your material in first, place the spacer on top of it, and then adjust the head. To adjust the head, loosen the screws on each side of the head. Once that is done, that'll loosen the head so that you can lift it up and slide the spacer block underneath the head. Now make sure it's centered. Bring the head back down so that it's seated or flat on top of the spacer block, and then once you have confirmed that it's flat, then go ahead and tighten the screws. Once the screws are tightened, then go ahead and remove the spacer block. To install the blade holder into the tool head, it's just a matter of loosening one of the thumb screws, either one of the tool heads, and then holding your finger underneath that tool head, and then placing the blade holder inside and pressing down. Make sure you press down completely so it's completely seated, and then tightening it. The blade is installed. Now you're ready to go ahead and cut. For further information on this subject, please review the following pages of the FCX2000 manual. Now if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at our email address, which is tech.support@graphtechamerica.com, or call us at 888-318-3247.